The Marvel Comics universe has entertained and enthralled comic book fans ever since the early 1960s. While the company's vast array of heroes can be traced back to the 1940s, and they did tell a number of crossover stories during this period, the fully interconnected shared universe that we all know and love didn't arise until Marvel's renaissance 2 decades later under the likes of Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. This sprawling, intertwined universe has become a staple of Marvel storytelling and success, both in the world of comics, animation, and the big screen. And with all of this success throughout subsequent decades, many fans began to ponder what the future might hold for the Marvel universe, and how it might look years after the ongoing stories had concluded. Marvel sought to answer these questions in the early 1990s, launching a new publishing imprint that reimagined their most popular heroes in the far distant future, entitled Marvel 2099. This new series, which saw the likes of Spider-Man, the X-Men, Doctor Doom and the Punisher all be brought to life in a futuristic cyberpunk-like world, would become something of a cult hit amongst comic book fans, being fondly remembered as a unique new interpretation of some of the company's most beloved characters. And so in this video, I want to explain the origins of how Marvel's 2099 imprint came to be, discuss all of the various characters introduced into this universe and how they differed from their classic depictions, and try to explain the legacy of this ambitious new series, and why this potential future for the Marvel Comics universe was eventually cut short. Before we continue though, just a quick reminder to leave a like on this video if you enjoy it, and subscribe to Owen Likes Comics so you don't miss out on any future videos. While the Marvel 2099 imprint came into existence in November 1992, the building blocks to this ambitious project can actually be traced back to several years earlier. You see, whilst Marvel's main comic book universe had become firmly entrenched by the mid-1980s, with the company beginning to tell several high-profile crossovers between their flagship characters, such as Secret Wars and Contest of Champions, they also began to explore the possibility of launching a second superhero universe, one featuring a whole host of new and original characters. This initiative, led by then Editor-in-Chief Jim Shooter, materialised in 1986 in the form of the New Universe, an imprint which aimed to differentiate itself from Marvel's mainline status quo by telling its stories in real time, with an emphasis on more realistic and less sci-fi and mythological based characters. Despite an intriguing premise, the New Universe struggled to gain momentum and interest from long-time readers, eventually leading to its cancellation in 1989, and in its place, Marvel would begin developing a new way of creating a separate comic book imprint that they believed would be more endearing to both new and existing readers. This new plan would begin to be teased in 1990, with Stan Lee announcing in the Marvel Age magazine that he and artist John Byrne were developing a graphic novel called The Marvel World of Tomorrow, which would reimagine various superheroes in the far future. Although Lee and Byrne would both hype up this exciting new comic book throughout much of 1990, the Marvel World of Tomorrow wouldn't make it onto newsstands in its initial format. Instead, Marvel would task a team of creators including Bob Harras, Tom DeFalco and Fabian Nicieza to expand the pitch into an entire new line of comics, showcasing a whole host of seminal Marvel heroes and their evolutions at the end of the 21st century. This new imprint, christened Marvel 2099, would be formally unveiled in October 1992 in the pages of Marvel Age issue 117. This announcement would not only confirm the 4 initial books that would launch the series, but would also reveal that former DC editor Joey Cavalieri had been headhunted to oversee all of the 2099 comics, having been handpicked by DeFalco. The following month, the very first issue of this new project would hit shelves, in the form of Peter David and Rick Leonardi's Spider-Man 2099 issue 1. This comic, which would become the imprint's flagship book, would reimagine the web-slinger as Miguel O'Hara, an Irish-Mexican geneticist whose DNA is rewritten with the spiders whilst working for the mega corporation Alchemex. Set in the cyberpunk city of Nueva York, the comic would see Miguel on the run from his former employers, donning an updated version of the classic Spider-Man costume whilst facing off against new iterations of the hero's legendary villains, such as the Vulture and Venom. While the Spider-Man series would be released on a monthly basis, Marvel would also adopt a staggered approach to all of their other 2099 titles, with the intention being to not oversaturate the market with new comics and burn readers out in the same way that the new universe did. As such, in December 1992, the first issue of Ravage 2099 would be released, with this character being an original creation of Stan Lee and Paul Ryans. Characterised as a former CEO of an Alchemax subsidiary, framed for murder after the discovery of the company's dark secrets, Ravage would become a vigilante, seeking to expose the truth on his former employers whilst on the run from both Alchemax and the police. The next title, debuting in January 1993, was the quite intriguing Doom 2099, initially written by John Francis Moore with art by Pat Broderick. While an admittedly unusual choice given Doctor Doom's status as a villain, this comic saw the character be mysteriously teleported to the future, where he discovers Latveria, now under the forceful rule of Tiger Wilde. As such, Doom transforms himself into a freedom fighter, attempting to liberate his nation, creating a new suit of armour made from futuristic technology in the process. The fourth and final book that made up the initial bunch of 2099 comics was actually centred around the Punisher, and was first released in February of 1993. Instead of Frank Castle, this Punisher was Jake Gallows, a member of a private police force whose family were killed by Cron Stone, the son of Alchemax CEO Tyler Stone. After finding the original Punisher's diary, Jake adopts the mantle and begins a quest for vengeance, as well as swearing to protect those ignored by the private police. Upon their staggered releases throughout late 1992 and 1993, the initial series of Marvel 2099 comics would prove to be a big success for the company. Due to this success, 2 more titles were added to the line throughout 1993. A quarterly released anthology magazine entitled 2099 Unlimited that most prominently featured The Incredible Hulk, and X-Men 2099, which introduced a new team of mutant heroes and primarily centred itself around the new character of Skullfire. By the end of 1993, very few could doubt the success of the 2099 imprint. By this point, all 6 of its titles had gained a solid and regular readership, and many fans were thoroughly enjoying learning more of this unique world that the stories were all set within. As 1994 rolled in, Marvel's ambitions began to grow even further, as the company started to devise plans to tell a line-wide crossover story that would not only bring all of the futuristic characters together for the very first time, but usher in an entirely new era for the 2099 universe, one brought about by the mysterious fall of a hammer. Told throughout the pages of Spider-Man, Ravage, X-Men, Doom and Punisher 2099, the 5-part crossover Fall of the Hammer would be the grand culmination of this first phase of Marvel's 2099 universe. Throughout all of the previous 2099 stories, it had been established that Thor had long since vanished from Earth, and in his place, a religion celebrating the Norse hero had developed and grown in popularity. This idea of the Church of Thor would be furthered in Spider-Man 2099 issue 16, when Alchemax reveal that they have created a new floating city in the sky, which they christen Valhalla. However, when the company attempt to bring the city's power grid online, it's suddenly disrupted by a bolt of lightning, as Thor and Heimdall make their long-awaited return to Earth. As Thor orders everyone off of Valhalla, Spider-Man shows up and attempts to defuse the situation, only to be attacked by Thor for his troubles. After being knocked out by Mjolnir, Miguel wakes up to find the Punisher standing over him, before the two heroes agree to work together to investigate the God of Thunder's mysterious return. As all of this is going on, Ravage teams up with the X-Men to confront the Asgardians, where they realise that the likes of Heimdall, Hela and Loki are all imposters created by Alchemax. This eventually leads to Ravage, the X-Men, Spider-Man and the Punisher teaming up with Doctor Doom to take down Thor and gain control of Valhalla, with Thor also being revealed as an imposter and dying during the battle. As the first major team-up of the 2099 imprint, Fall of the Hammer was designed to bring the universe's various heroes formally out of the shadows, and usher in a new age of heroism by having all of these characters unite and fight together. In the aftermath of this story though, Marvel would continue to expand its 2099 universe, launching 2 more titles, Ghost Rider and The Incredible Hulk, while also setting up the next major status quo change in the pages of Doom 2099, as we learn that Victor character has claimed Valhalla for himself and now believes that his mission to liberate the future must be done through world domination. This leads into the One Nation Under Doom story arc told by writer Warren Ellis, where Victor stages a coup in Washington DC and declares himself the new president of the United States. This would mark a major shift for the entire imprint, as all of the other titles were renamed to 2099 AD to reflect Doom's rule. This period of the universe's history would see characters like Ravage be killed off, while the Punisher ascended to becoming Doom's new head of security. As president, Doom declares war on Alchemax and all of the other large corporations that dominate the 2099 world, blaming them for all of the societal problems plaguing this dystopian future. This results in the shocking return of Captain America in Doom 2099 issue 33, who reveals that he was frozen during a battle between Doom and the Avengers that resulted in the villain killing off all of the world's remaining heroes. This revelation quickly causes the country to turn against Doom, allowing Captain America to install himself as the new president. However, almost immediately after swearing himself in, it's revealed that this isn't actually Steve Rogers at all, and instead a clone created by Alchemax to retake control of America, with Cap immediately using his powers to declare martial law on superheroes, with both Hulk and the Punisher being killed in the process. This story arc was pitched by Ellis to be a dramatic revamp of the 2099 status quo, allowing Marvel to remove several characters whose titles had begun to underperform and drastically change the landscape for those who remained. In the fallout of this story, Marvel would unveil two new 2099 titles, X Nation and the highly anticipated Fantastic Four 2099. While these new books were intended to signal a new era for the imprint, beginning in January of 1996, as the year progressed, the company soon found itself in major financial turmoil, and it would be this that would signal the beginning of the end for this once promising future. Although Marvel Comics intended for 1996 to be a year of major rejuvenation for the 2099 imprint, the company soon found itself on the brink of filing for bankruptcy. While this would prove to be inevitable, with Marvel formally filing for Chapter 11 bankruptcy in December, they would attempt to stave this off earlier in the year by making a number of widespread cuts, both to their output of comics and full-time creative staff. In particular, throughout the year, Marvel would fire 275 employees, with perhaps the most shocking name in this list being Joey Cavalieri, the longtime group editor of Marvel's 2099 titles. Cavalieri's firing proved to be immensely controversial within the company, causing some of the key writers behind the 2099 universe's success, such as Peter David and Warren Ellis, to quit their titles in protest. Partly due to this, as well as continuing declining interest in the series, Marvel made the decision to cancel all of the remaining 2099 comics in August of 1996. Instead, the universe would soldier on in a brand new bi-monthly title, 2099 World of Tomorrow, which aimed to resolve all of the unfinished storylines being told in each of the previous comics. All of this internal unrest created the perfect storm for the rapid demise of the 2099 universe, as World of Tomorrow ultimately failed to endear itself to readers. It's somewhat unsurprising given the difficulties in juggling stories with so many unique characters in one singular title, but after only 8 issues, the series was cancelled in April of 1997. The final story told in this book was a rather rushed attempt at resolving the larger threads of the universe, where the Phalanx would attempt to conquer Earth and Doctor Doom would sacrifice himself to prevent their invasion. And with World of Tomorrow's conclusion, it appeared that this once prosperous imprint had reached its rather anticlimactic ending. However, the 2099 universe would be briefly resurrected the following year, in an attempt to give what was once an exciting new wing of Marvel Comics a more cathartic and fitting send-off. Written by Len Kaminski with art by Mike McKone, the one-shot double-sized comic 2099 Manifest Destiny would act as the epilogue to the universe's overarching story. Released in March 1998, the book would see the Earth rebuild after the war against the Phalanx, with Miguel O'Hara leading the charge, now the CEO of Alchemax. As this is all going on, a deep-sea expedition team shockingly discovers the cryogenically frozen body of the real Captain America. Thawed from ice once more, Cap awakens and meets with Miguel, and after learning the state of the world that he finds himself in, he agrees to help Spider-Man restore hope to this damaged future. It's during this conversation that Miguel reveals that the deep-sea crew also discovered Thor's hammer in the ice, with O'Hara giving it to Steve and asking him to become a symbol that will inspire a new age of heroes. Grabbing the hammer, Cap is transformed into both a hybrid of himself and the God of Thunder, and agrees to use his newfound power for good. Meanwhile, the Fantastic Four meet with the Watcher on the moon, as they learn a group of extraterrestrial races have placed a shield around the Earth, trapping the planet and dooming those within it. As the news of Earth's entrapment reaches all of the 2099 heroes, Captain America leads a team into space. With the likes of Spider-Man, the Fantastic Four, and the Punisher all by his side, Cap attempts to break through the shield and free the planet. However, it's only when the Watcher finally breaks his vow that they're able to do this, with Uatu using his powers to destroy the barrier at the expense of his life. With the Earth saved once again, the comic then chronicles what happens to humanity over the next century, as we witness a new age of heroes led by Captain America and a new team of Avengers, leading the planet into prosperity and an eventual utopian society. The final moments see a now 1,000-year-old Captain America recounting his adventures with Miguel in the year 3099, as he agrees to wield Mjolnir one more time and journeys into space, searching for the next frontier. Following the release of Manifest Destiny, the 2099 universe would be for the most part laid to rest, as Marvel Comics slowly emerged from bankruptcy and focused their efforts on launching new publishing lines to try and turn their fortunes around. As the new millennium was ushered in, the company found success with two alternate imprints to their mainline status quo. The Marvel Knights series launched by Joe Quesada and Jimmy Palmiotti in 1998, and their new Ultimate Universe launched in 2000. And with this, the 2099 experiment quickly became forgotten about, with few of the characters that were spotlighted in this imprint resurfacing in other stories afterwards. In truth, the only character that would make notable appearances in the years after the universe's demise was Miguel O'Hara, with Peter David, the longtime writer of Spider-Man 2099, bringing the character back briefly in their run on Captain Marvel. Marvel Comics would actually attempt a brief 2099 relaunch in 2004, tasking writer Robert Kirkman with telling 5 one-shot stories that reimagine the characters featured in the Marvel Knights titles in the far future. However, these books not only were short-lived, but were set in a separate continuity from any of the previous 2099 stories. In fact, the most noteworthy story to feature 2099 characters would also be a significant reimagining of the world. You see, in 2009, Marvel Comics released the 6-part crossover Time Storm, which featured the X-Men and Spider-Man, both in their present day and far future iterations. However, while these versions of the futuristic heroes were more akin to how they'd been previously written in the universe, they were still clearly not the same characters, with this story's iteration of Miguel O'Hara being recharacterized as a teenage superhero. Overall though, I think the legacy of the 2099 imprint is fascinating, as it represents not only Marvel's first real success of creating a secondary imprint outside of their mainline books, but also in how it allowed writers and artists to reimagine beloved superheroes in unique new ways. While they weren't always successful, the 2099 characters were almost all bold and different versions from their classic counterparts, and it's this inherent new factor and uniqueness that made these books must read in the early years of the imprint's life. Although it has to be said that the 2099 experiment wasn't without its flaws, and has its fair share of missed opportunities and underwhelming stories, I think it's a noteworthy piece of Marvel history that today doesn't get the recognition and focus that it deserves. While the world of 2099 may not have been fully realised as the canonical future of the Marvel Universe, its short-lived success did, in many ways, pave the way for how the company would approach their storytelling and world building for decades to come. In short, 2099 may not have become the world of tomorrow that it intended to be, but I think it remains an important and noteworthy step in the future of Marvel that was eventually realised. Hey everyone, thank you so much for watching today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please make sure to leave a like on the video and leave a comment down below as well. Let me know your thoughts on everything we talked about in today's video. I can't wait to hear what you have to say as always. If you're new to Owen Likes Comics, please make sure to hit the subscribe button and the notify bell so you don't miss out on any future videos. And if you enjoyed this video and you want some more, there should be some others on screen right now who you might also enjoy. If you want to help support the channel and help me make more videos, you can do so over at patreon.com/OwenLikesComics. Or if you just want some more of me, you can follow me on Twitter just at OwenLikesComics. But that's all for this video though. Again, thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and hopefully I'll see you next time. But until then, take care and keep reading.